Did you know that every hour of flight on the F-35 costs nearly $45,000? And yet America still calls it worth every penny? So what is it really? A masterpiece of technology, or the most expensive money-eating machine in military history? They call it a jet. I call it a revolution with wings. The F-35 Lightning II isn't just another aircraft in the Pentagon's hangar. It's the sharpest blade ever forged in the air power arsenal. To our enemies, it's a ghost that kills in silence. To some of our allies, it's a price tag that never stops ticking. Same jet. Two worlds colliding in one cockpit. So how can one machine inspire awe and anger at the same time? To understand that, you've got to trace it back to the beginning, when the US set out not just to build a fighter, but to build a global system of dependence. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. God blesses those who dare to stand for their beliefs. A single comment today might inspire someone else tomorrow. Did you know that every hour of flight on the F-35 costs nearly $45,000? And yet America still calls it worth every penny? So what is it really? A masterpiece of technology? Or the most expensive money-eating machine in military history? The birth of a legend. In the late 1990s, our Air Force faced a grim arithmetic. The F-16 Fighting Falcon, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the AV-8B Harrier, the FA-18 Hornet, and Europe's Tornado, all aging. 5 different aircraft, 5 different training programs, 5 different maintenance nightmares. The solution? One family of jets that could do it all. The Joint Strike Fighter program was born. It sounded insane at first. One design that could become 3 specialized variants. The F-35A for the Air Force. The F-35B for the Marines, capable of vertical takeoff. The F-35C for the Navy's carriers. More than 3,000 jets, spread across 15 nations. The single largest military contract in human history. Billions in R&D, thousands of jobs, decades of commitment. But the goal wasn't just performance, it was permanence. Once you join the F-35 club, you never really leave. A jet that rewrote the rulebook. Every generation of air combat had its great leap. For us, the leap was stealth plus brains. The F-35 didn't just fly better, it thought better. Its radar cross-section is smaller than a golf ball. That's not marketing talk. That's radar physics. Russian S-400s, Chinese HQ-9s, Iranian hybrids, they all spin helplessly as the lightning ghosts through their range. Stealth isn't invisibility, it's confusion. When your radar lies, your strategy collapses. Air combat used to be chess. Now it's one side playing blindfolded. Seeing without being seen. In October 2024, and again in June 2025, Israeli F-35I Adirs slipped deep into Iranian skies. No radar warning, no scramble alarms, just explosions on the ground. Iran's generals watched blank screens while their billion-dollar defenses did nothing. That's when you realize, stealth isn't just about survival, it's about psychological warfare. If your enemy stops believing his own sensors, he stops fighting with confidence. The pilot's new world. I've flown jets where the cockpit looked like a Christmas tree. Dozens of dials, screens, warning lights. The F-35 throws that mess in the trash. Every radar, every camera, every electronic whisper feeds into one fused picture. A single panoramic display inside the cockpit, and a helmet that turns a human head into a targeting computer. That helmet, worth over $400,000, is molded to the pilot's skull. Look down and you see through the floor. Look left. You see the horizon through metal. The first time I tried it in a simulator, I took my hands off the stick just to stare. This wasn't flying anymore. It was immersion. A computer that happens to fly. We used to joke, it's not a fighter with software. It's software with wings. But that's exactly what makes it terrifying. The F-35 is an airborne sensor fusion node, feeding data into every domain of the US and allied military. Land, sea, air, space, everything connected through secure networks. One F-35 spots a target, and every asset, ships, satellites, ground forces, knows about it instantly. That's the network effect. 10 F-35s don't equal 10 fighters. They equal exponential awareness. The invisible web Russia's Krasuka-4 jammers try to blind it. China's drone swarms attempt to overload it. Neither works for long, because the F-35's data link system shifts frequencies faster than the enemy can react. It's digital Darwinism, adapt or die. We call it distributed warfare. One node goes dark, another takes over. You can destroy a plane, but you can't kill the network. Combat-proven ghosts. By 2025, this jet had done more than just train. It had fought. In Gaza, in Syria, over Iraq, even against Houthi missiles. October 31st, 2023. An Israeli F-35, I intercepted a cruise missile mid-flight. That's not science fiction. That's verified history. A stealth fighter shooting down a cruise missile. Something even Cold War strategists never dared imagine. It proved one thing. The F-35 can rewrite missions on the fly, training the next generation. But these machines aren't plug-and-play. Pilots coming from the F-16 need 6 to 12 months to adapt. Training costs run between $9 and $10 million per pilot. Because this isn't just a new jet, it's a new mindset. You don't think about dogfighting anymore. You think about information dominance. Your weapons are stealth, data, and deception. I've trained younger pilots who grew up on video games, and they adapt fastest. They're digital natives. The F-35 rewards that kind of brain, the software that never sleeps. What separates the F-35 from everything before it is evolution, so. Not through hardware, but through software updates. Every few months, new code streams in from the US, refining radar algorithms, electronic warfare tactics, and even fuel efficiency. That means the jet you flew last year isn't the same jet you fly today. It gets smarter every flight hour. Compare that to the Su-57, which Russia struggles to maintain in double-digit numbers, or China's J-20, still wrestling with data integration. The difference is night and day. The US builds ecosystems. Others build airframes. A battlefield made of data. Each F-35 mission is a reconnaissance goldmine. The aircraft doesn't just hunt targets. It harvests information. Every radar pulse it receives, every electronic signal it catches, gets stored, analyzed, and shared. Over time, we build a map of enemy defenses so precise, it borders on clairvoyant. Imagine a machine that learns every time it flies, because that's what it does. That's why adversaries call it the silent spy. The Alliance Web. By 2035, NATO expects 550 to 600 F-35s deployed across Europe. That means a single, unified fleet capable of acting as one brain. When a British pilot in Iraq finds a target, an American or Polish jet in Germany can hit it seconds later. That's interoperability on steroids. And it's expanding fast. Japan, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, Finland, Switzerland, all joining the network. From the Arctic Circle to the South China Sea, one invisible web covers the map. For China, that means any move toward Taiwan triggers not one response, but an orchestrated storm. For Russia, it means their skies are no longer sanctuaries. This was never an accident. It was grand strategy. Stealth as diplomacy, the F-35 doesn't just win wars, it wins loyalty. When allies buy it, they don't just get an aircraft, they inherit an entire supply chain, training regime, and digital dependency. Assembly in Italy and Japan creates jobs and political investment. Parts built in Norway, Denmark, Canada, everyone gets a slice. That's the genius. Make the program too big to quit. No politician wants to kill local jobs tied to the jet that keeps their skies safe. Canceling an F-35 program is like pulling life support on your own defense industry. The air power paradox, stealth dominance, global networking, political gravity, it sounds like perfection. But perfection always hides its price tag. Even in America, pilots joke that the F-35's true stealth isn't on radar, it's on the budget. The numbers are staggering. $1.7 trillion projected through 2070, covering development, acquisition, operations, and sustainment. Each unit, $82.5 million for the F-35A, $109 million for the B, $103 million for the C. Those are purchase prices. The real cost comes later, in maintenance hours, parts shortages, and software upkeep. It's a fighter and an economy wrapped in one. Maintenance, the hidden battlefield. For every hour of flight, an F-35 demands 15 to 20 hours of maintenance. Old fighters needed 10 to 15. That's the tax of complexity. Stealth coatings wear fast. Electronics need climate-controlled care. Every panel removed means recalibration. Israel manages to push 70% mission readiness in combat, but most Allied squadrons hover around 55 to 65%, short of the 80% goal. Still, commanders keep flying them, because when it works, nothing else compares. The human side of the machine. I've met pilots who describe their first F-35 sortie like a religious experience, not because of the speed, but because of the silence. No screaming engines, no vibration, just smooth, almost eerie stability. You're flying inside a cocoon of data, but it can be overwhelming. The transition from the analog chaos of an F-16 to the digital precision of an F-35 takes months of mental rewiring. You stop reacting and start orchestrating. Some say it removes the human from the fight. I disagree. It makes the human the conductor of chaos. The trap that smiles. Here's where things get interesting. The F-35 isn't just a fighter. It's a strategic instrument dressed as hardware. Every nation that buys it plugs directly into American systems, software, diagnostics, logistics, mission planning. That's convenience on the surface, and dependence underneath. The US holds the master code. Even allies can't modify core software without permission. Updates, threat libraries, performance tuning, all controlled through secure American channels. It's brilliant, and it's unsettling. Because when one country controls the code, it controls the capability. The next generation arms race look around. Russia and China both see the writing on the wall. Russia talks about its future checkmate fighter, cheap, stealthy, export-ready. China boasts of a coming J-35 carrier jet, but both are years away from maturity. Meanwhile, F-35s are already flying real missions, logging data, learning. That's the gap nobody closes quickly. Combat experience. You can't fake it. You can only survive long enough to earn it. The question hanging in the air. Now think ahead. By 2040, nearly every Western democracy will depend on the F-35's software backbone. What happens if that backbone becomes a leash? What happens when an ally wants to act independently, but the update they need sits on a server in Fort Worth, Texas? That's not conspiracy talk. That's logistics. And in warfare, logistics decides who wins. We're about halfway through the story now. We've seen how the Lightning II rewrote the laws of air combat, how it blinded enemies, and how it built a global alliance through technology. But coming up is the darker side of that brilliance. The cost, the politics, the frustration boiling inside the very nations that depend on it. Because for every ally that flies the F-35, there's a taxpayer asking, are we buying freedom or renting it? Before we cross into that storm, I'll leave you with a thought. When a jet becomes the key to a nation's security, and the code to that jet sits in someone else's hands, who really commands the skies? Stay tuned. The answer lies not in the hangar, but in the fine print of the world's most powerful military contract. And trust me, the next chapter gets even more uncomfortable. The F-35 trap. America's smartest weapon isn't a missile. They say power always comes with a price. The F-35 proved that. In dollars, politics, and sovereignty. To the public, it's a sleek machine wrapped in American pride. To defense ministers in Europe and Asia, it's a financial black hole with wings. The numbers don't lie. By 2024, the estimated life cycle cost of the program hit $1.7 trillion through the year 2070. Not a typo. Trillion with a T. The most expensive weapon system ever built. The cost of dominance unit prices looked manageable on paper. An F-35A runs about $82.5 million. A B variant, the vertical takeoff model, around $109 million. And the C variant for carriers about $103 million. But that's the easy part. The price tag you pay once. The nightmare begins after delivery. Every hour of flight demands 15 to 20 hours of maintenance. Every replacement part carries a barcode tied to an American logistics system. Even paint, that stealth coating that eats up man-hours and budgets, has to be applied under U.S. supervision. Allies thought they were buying independence. Instead, they bought subscription air power. Dependency in disguise. The real brilliance of the F-35 program isn't in its stealth or its sensors or even its speed. It's in the invisible leash. At its core sits Odin, the operational data integrated network, the digital nervous system that keeps every Lightning II alive. Odin logs every flight, every part, every mission. It diagnoses problems, downloads performance data, and connects to servers back in the United States. That means Washington knows more about how an ally's F-35 fleet performs than the ally itself. Mission planning, diagnostics, weapons integration, all require American approval. You want to add a domestic missile? You'll need U.S. engineers to code it in. You want to modify threat libraries? That request goes to Fort Worth. So while the jet gives nations access to fifth-generation power, it also locks them inside an ecosystem that only America can maintain. Software sovereignty, or the illusion of it. Back when I flew, sovereignty meant you could take off, fight, and decide your own mission. Now, sovereignty is a login screen. The F-35 runs on millions of lines of American-controlled code, all encrypted, all restricted, and none of it shared. In 2019, John Schreiber, head of F-35 International Affairs, made it official. The United States will not share the software source code with allies. That one sentence defined the next half-century of Allied air power. Because if you don't own the code, you don't own the jet. Friction among friends. It didn't take long for frustration to surface. Canada's parliament held debates questioning whether F-35 dependence was undermining national sovereignty. Germany's defense ministry worried about U.S. control over European air defenses. Australia's analysts warned that total reliance on American logistics was a strategic risk. Denmark's defense minister publicly complained about maintenance costs spiraling out of control, 40% higher than initial projections. Norway's operational budget ballooned so fast, it consumed funds meant for other military programs. The Netherlands faced part shortages that grounded squadrons for weeks. And yet, none of them walked away. Because walking away from the F-35 means walking away from modern warfare itself. The politics of permanence. The F-35 isn't just hardware. It's an industrial spiderweb designed to entangle. Every partner nation builds something. A wing here, a radar there, a titanium panel somewhere else. Canceling the program would kill domestic jobs overnight. And that's exactly the point. Lockheed Martin understood that politics is the best armor a weapon can have. Once local factories depend on the program, parliaments defend it, and economies sustain it. The result? You can't cancel the F-35. You can only complain while paying. Turkey. The cautionary tale. If any country tested that rule, it was Turkey. A founding partner, a production hub, over $1.4 billion invested, plans for 100 jets, Turkish pilots training in Arizona, Turkish companies building parts of the fuselage. Then came the deal with Moscow, the S-400 air defense system. Washington warned, you can't have both, our fighter and Russia's radar. Ankara didn't back down. In 2019, the U.S. pulled the trigger. Turkey was expelled from the F-35 program overnight. Pilots were sent home, contracts canceled, investments lost. The message echoed around the world. Challenge American control, and you're out. That move wasn't about punishment. It was about precedent. A reminder to every ally that participation in the F-35 network is conditional loyalty. The trap closes. Other nations took note. Japan, with one of the most advanced aerospace industries on Earth, considered building its own fifth-generation jet. But the math didn't lie. Developing such an aircraft from scratch would take 2 decades, cost hundreds of billions, and still risk falling behind America's next iteration. So Japan bought the F-35 anyway, because sovereignty is expensive, but obsolescence is fatal. Even Germany, long skeptical of U.S. dominance, ended up ordering 35 F-35s to fulfill its NATO nuclear mission. The irony? They joined the program to stay independent in nuclear deterrence by relying on an American aircraft. That's the quiet brilliance of the design. Each sale locks a nation into decades of dependency. Europe's dream of escape, Europe's defense giants, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, saw the trap forming and began sketching an exit plan. The result? 2 competing 6th-generation fighter programs, FCAS, Future Combat Air System, and Tempest. On paper, they promise independence. In reality, they're decades away. Costs are exploding, political consensus is fragile, and engineers are already migrating to the U.S. for experience. Even if FCAS and Tempest fly by the 2040s, The world's skies will already belong to fleets of combat-tested F-35s. By the time Europe catches up, America will be fielding its next weapon, the F-47 NGAD, a stealth plus platform designed to control AI drones. You see the pattern? The ladder keeps climbing. America's already on the next rung before anyone else finishes building the first. Power through dependence from the outside, the F-35 looks like generosity, America sharing its crown jewels with the world. But under the hood, it's something subtler, engineered alignment. Every F-35 nation becomes part of a network that only works if Washington keeps the servers running. That's not an accident. That's strategy. This isn't the Cold War's arsenal of democracy. This is the architecture of dominance. A web that keeps allies close, adversaries cautious, and technology centralized. When your defense runs on another country's software, your foreign policy naturally follows its updates. The hidden hierarchy. Even within the alliance, not all jets are equal. The F-22 Raptor remains U.S. only, still the king of the skies, with superior speed, agility, and stealth. The F-35 is the export model, a masterpiece, but deliberately limited. Allies fly a weapon that gives them parity with everyone but the United States. That's by design. Because America shares power, just never all of it. While allies celebrate their F-35 fleets, the Pentagon tests the F-47 NGAD, an aircraft that fuses human and machine intelligence in real time. So when allies get the lightning, America keeps the thunder. Data, the new ammunition. The real battlefield now isn't airspace, it's data. Every mission an ally flies, every engagement they record, every radar echo captured, it all feeds back into American databases. The more allies fly, the smarter America's systems get. This isn't exploitation. It's efficiency, a global feedback loop that constantly evolves the network. Meanwhile, adversaries like Russia and China operate in isolation, each guarding its own data, each learning slowly. That's why the F-35 isn't just a plane. It's a living organism, a digital entity that grows stronger with every flight, every partner, every bite. The illusion of choice, many ask. Why don't allies just say no? Because they can't. Alternatives exist. The French Rafale, the Eurofighter Typhoon, the Swedish Gripen. All are capable, even elegant. But none are truly fifth generation. Without stealth, without sensor fusion, without data integration, they become second tier in modern combat. It's like bringing a sword to a gunfight, beautiful but outdated. So nations keep buying the F-35, even while complaining about it in Parliament, because the alternative isn't independence, it's irrelevance, deterrence through saturation. For adversaries like China, Russia, or Iran, the F-35's spread is a nightmare. They face not one military, but a coalition armed with the same brain, same code, same tactics. 550s, 600 F-35s in Europe by 2035, hundreds more across the Pacific. Imagine an alliance that fights as one, from Poland to Tokyo, from the Arctic to the Indian Ocean. That's the power of standardization. To an enemy radar operator, the screen might show 10 blips. In reality, it's one network moving as a single consciousness. That's deterrence by design. Lessons written in silence. Ask any strategist in Beijing or Moscow what keeps them awake at night. It's not just the F-35's stealth. It's the uncertainty it brings. They don't know when they're being tracked. They don't know what the jet sees. And worst of all, they can't reproduce it. You can reverse engineer a fuselage. You can't reverse engineer trust, training, and 20 years of shared data. That's what makes this machine more than a weapon. It's a civilization project in metal and code. Allies us in the web. For the Allies, the program created a strange kind of unity. Shared training, shared doctrine, shared dependency. Joint exercises now run smoother than ever before. Pilots from Norway, Japan, and the US can fly in formation without speaking a word. Their jets do the talking through encrypted data streams. That's a level of coordination the world's never seen. But unity built on dependence always carries a risk. If the hub falters, the spokes fall. And that's the bet every Allied Air Force has made. The uncomfortable truth. When people ask me if I think the F-35 was worth it, I pause. Because worth depends on what you value, autonomy or assurance. The Lightning II delivered absolute battlefield awareness, but it also handed America the keys to every hangar it touched. To some, that's a fair trade. Shared strength in exchange for shared control. To others, it's the beginning of a quiet surrender. Both are right. The empire that doesn't look like one empires used to build walls and colonies. Today, they build networks. The F-35 is the most successful imperial project in modern history, and no one calls it that because it wears the uniform of cooperation. Every update, every part shipment, every software patch is another thread in the tapestry of influence. Allies don't have to be coerced. They simply can't afford to leave. That's the genius. That's the trap. Power preserved for the United States, the payoff is monumental. The F-35 ensures that even as Washington shares technology, it never loses superiority. It guarantees that allies stay synchronized, that adversaries stay behind, and that the global military order remains balanced on American terms. Even when others fly the same jet, America flies higher, because it owns the architecture that makes the jet alive. That's control through code. That's dominance without occupation. What comes next, the next chapter, is already being written. The F-47 Next Generation Air Dominance Program, NGAD, will take everything the F-35 learned and push it further. Adaptive engines, AI co-pilots, drone integration, stealth beyond stealth. And unlike the F-35, NGAD won't be for sale. It's America's ace for the next half-century, a reminder that while allies share the present, the future remains under the stars and stripes. The closing question. So what exactly is the F-35? A marvel of engineering? A diplomatic masterstroke? Or the most expensive cage ever built for freedom itself? That's the question every nation flying it must answer. Because the Lightning's brilliance hides a truth that's hard to swallow. Power shared is never power given. And as the engines roar over deserts, seas, and borders, they carry more than missiles and bombs. They carry a message. America doesn't just dominate the skies anymore. It owns the airspace of trust.